Welcome to Drams and Dragons, this week also known as Bitch Fest 2025. My name's Gus Berger, and with me, as always, is my co-host and best bud,
Ah,
Dustin Van Horn.
yeah. What's up, Gus? Can't wait to bitch with you a little bit.
Yeah,
There's so much to bitch about.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah, and more specifically, this week we're going to be complaining about the upcoming season 3. So this isn't even out yet. We're bitching about it. Season 3 of Wheel of Time. See, I said some things in our episode about the Great Hunt, which turns out were wrong. In particular, what I had said was we were going to be able to do book 3 when we do season 3. Just logical assumption.
Hmm.
I had not done enough research apparently to know that they are skipping book 3. This was just totally just news to me. They're
Yeah.
skipping book 3, skipping the Dragon Reborn, going right to Shadow Rising.
Yeah. Just a preview, right? Like the trailer that popped like a
Mm-hmm.
week ago. Yeah, showed him in the Isle Wastes and
Yeah. It showed him it like immediately. I've read it enough times. I'm enough of a like a Wheel of Time nerd that like immediately I watching the trailer, my brain was just broken because I was expecting book 3 stuff, and it was all
hmm
book 4 moments that they were
hmm
highlighting in the trailer, and I was like,
so triggered.
what is
Huh.
happening? And so then immediately the next thing I did was Google, what book are they doing? Angry typing. And I say there was a whole thing about they're skipping book 3 because um, reasons. We'll get
Yeah.
into those. We'll get into those reasons tonight. But
Yeah.
other than that, we were actually planning to do a different book and a totally different show up
Mm.
until a few days ago when we've all both found this out and we were like up in arms about it. So we were like, we need to at least explore this.
Yes. Yeah. We
But
have
how are
to.
you doing? How are you doing, man?
Well, in addition to not being surprised by their decision, I'm doing okay. It's very cold here in the Northeast,
Hmm.
so we're hunkering down through the freezing cold and wind.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Well, we're
nasty
we're
out.
back to our normal in the Pacific Northwest. We're away from our sort of cold, wintry sort of like couple of weeks. We are in the drizzly, wet, uh, you know,
Yeah.
damp, low clouds, no sun kind of,
Mhm.
normal kind of weather pattern here. So
Yeah. Nice like spring until you hit June for January.
mhm. We'll get that. We're still in that like drizzle winter, thing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good time to stay inside and complain about Wheel of Time stuff.
Yeah. Read a lot of fantasy,
Yeah.
drink a lot of whiskey.
Cool. Oh man, I wish I was drinking whiskey tonight. I'm having a nice tea because I have to get up
Yeah.
and do stuff tomorrow. We're going up to New Hampshire for some kind of vacation stuff. So,
Mhm. Yeah. I am going to be having some whiskey, but I'm not going to be doing a tasting. I'm just going to
mm,
be enjoying some of my Kilchoman Mahir Bay.
nice. Sounds good, man. And I'm just gonna wait and let my tea steep.
Ooh, it smells so good.
And I wish tea was exciting as exciting. I don't know. Maybe tea could be as exciting as whiskey.
Tea's pretty good.
Yeah,
I like tea. It's not as exciting as whiskey.
I bet there's like a tea podcast out there. They're like Dungeons and Tea. It's a British show.
So I don't know if you want me to do a tasting on this.
Yeah, up to you, man. Maybe give us a little refresher.
Hmm.
I think you did it way back when we started, but
Yeah, I did it
yeah.
way back when we were pretty new. It's we'd say very malty and very peaty.
It's what we
Little
like here.
little sweetness on the nose.
Mhm.
It's primarily a bourbon cask,
Oh,
with a little bit of tiny. It's like 90% bourbon cask, 10% sherry cask. So
nice.
one of the cool things about this distillery, just to remind everybody, is that they're like a hyper local distillery. Like they have their own farm, they grow their own barley. It goes into this whiskey. It's a very cool thing that they're doing. Yeah, I can get a little bit of that like caramel, from the bourbon cask. Very
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah, it's hard to go wrong.
Oh yeah, it's very nice. I'm getting a lot of the sort of herbaceousness from the peat mixed with beautiful caramel sort of sweetness. Um, very smooth, nice and balanced. It still has that sort of effervescence of the peat that you get with some things.
Mm-hmm.
It's very nice. Really like it. It's got a good long finish. Not too long. It's a little oily though. You could see the.
I say it's hard to go it's hard to go wrong with that combo, with that kind of sherry and then the bourbon and the peat. And
All right. Well, yeah. Do you want to move on? I mean, I recommend this. I
dude,
definitely recommend
yeah,
this.
let's do it.
Uh, just like I did last time.
Heck yeah.
It's a great dram. Um, Uniquely Isla is their tagline. Yeah.
Cool.
Whew.
Dragon Reborn.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to talk about The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan. And there's a few ways. I know I said we're going to bitch about stuff. And I think there's a few ways we could go about talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
We could just spend 45 minutes or whatever bitching about it. And I want to do a little bit of that. We could also, and I think I'd like to do more of this, appreciate The Dragon Reborn for what it is, because there's no amount of bitching about it that we do is going to get them to change what they've done. They've already done it. They've already made the show. They made the trailer. It's happening. They've skipped it. They've skipped it. And I just want everybody to appreciate this book as much as I do, because I've seen a lot of people online defending this decision they've made for some fucking reason. Not everybody has, mind you. There's been a mix. There's been a very, very much a mix of opinions. But when I engaged online, I got a lot of people defending it. So I just want to appreciate this book, because I think there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, you can skip it. Oh, you can skip it. Oh, it's fine. It's okay. You can skip it, though. It'll work. But I'm frustrated by the decision because I love this book.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the best book in the series? No, Shadow Rising is a better book. But I think Shadow Rising is the book that it is.
Yeah.
Because of this book. Maybe even more than because of the first two.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some very important character development. Introduce characters, events.
Yep.
That just
less so events. There's some. There's
I will
agree to disagree there.
Yeah, a couple of big ones.
I see, because I think that this is the book where Matt and Perrin come into their own.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second book, Egwene and Nynaeve, come into their own as fully fleshed, separate characters doing their own separate things. I think this book is where Matt, in particular, takes a step into being one of the major characters of this whole series. Yeah. And something that I saw pointed out is that the book is called The Dragon Reborn, and Rand is barely in it.
Yeah, I was reading that too. It was what, like 90% of the book, basically. Rand's not. It's all other points of view.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rand takes a back seat in The Dragon Reborn. People are using that as a reason why it was okay to cancel the book.
Yeah.
It bothers me.
That's a reason, huh? Oh. That's that's interesting, because even that story, I mean, that's why I say the events, like, basically his story in this book is of like a wanderer. Like, he's decided to go about it on his own. And he's got his own plan. He's wandering across the countryside, being at Taverin. Weird stuff's happening. People are getting married. Weird stuff's happening in villages. Like, you kind of hear it. It's like rumbling, like the storm. And then it culminates with him at the Stone of Tyr. And, it's, that character development, and it is so hard. And we've talked about it before too. Like, how do you adapt this giant, deep book into a show where you can't just show like a whole book's worth of gentle character development? So I appreciate that it's difficult. like you said, they earned book 4 with book 3.
Yeah.
Rand was able to do what he did because of his wandering through the world and the culmination at the Stone of Tyr. So, and the realization and dude, everything with Kalendor, man, like Kalendor was one of my passwords for years. like, like this is so
Oh yeah.
cool. For those who don't know, so Kalendor is like a crystal sword, and it's a Sai Grail. It can channel the one power, and only for
Yeah.
men.
Super powerful artifact in the
Yeah,
shape of a sword that, yeah, men, that not even all men, just basically the Dragon Reborn can take it and use it.
yeah,
If you're not the Dragon Reborn, you can't even take it from the Stone of Tyr, which is a big fortress.
right. So it's got that sword of the stone kind of thing going
Mm-hmm.
on a little bit.
Exactly. But
Yeah,
the stone of Tyr is the big fortress,
yeah,
and it's protected by ancient magics.
yeah. There's a
Yeah,
prophecy and stuff like
yeah.
that.
It's the
Yeah,
sword and the stone, but it's literally in the stone. Like it's not like jammed into the stone. It's like hidden inside this big fortress that's like Gibraltar or something, right?
yeah.
Um, it's pretty cool. Like I think it's pretty cool, and the whole book basically is him fulfilling this prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't see it from his perspective, and this is one of the things that bugs me about that argument that, oh, he's not in it, so it just makes sense to skip it because he's the main character of the whole thing. And this is something that bugs me about it, because the first 2 seasons, my biggest complaint, or one of my biggest complaints, was that they were going in and adding story because certain characters, they wanted to make certain characters more important and bigger in those books because they weren't in those first 2 books. So they were adding story because somebody wasn't there. Like, take the second season, Moiraine was not in the book The Great Hunt. She wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. She was briefly there, her and Lan, and then they leave and they're gone in the book. Well, in the book, sorry, but in the show in season 2, they were shoved in, plot lines were invented for them to appear and for them to have a major role that didn't exist in the book. Mm. They have shown that they don't care about making shit up if somebody's absent. So this argument that because Rand's not in 90% of the book, Moiraine wasn't in any of practically 99% of the second book, and they crammed her into the whole season, and so then they couldn't just have us follow Rand. Rand is in that book. He's just off screen. They couldn't show us that off screen. They couldn't show us his journey and just make all that shit up. They already made shit up in the first 2 seasons. Like, they can't make shit up for the third book. Like,
remember we were talking about that too. Like, some of their coolest scenes are doing that, like filling us in on stuff that wasn't in the books. Mm-hmm. I sanction that if it's well done. It's like, sure, man, show me that stuff that I've always been curious about. Give me that. Show Rand in the village. Show this, the pattern twisting and people like worst enemies getting married and stuff like that. Like,
and he killed. I mean, in the books, one of the most horrific, dark things, one of the darkest things in the whole series happens in this book off screen. Mm-hmm. Rand is out there going insane. He's literally killing people. There's a scene where this happens off screen and we see the result of it. And it may not have been something he did on purpose, but it's dark. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been a cool thing to do. If you're going to be adding shit in, it would have been cool to show us some of this shit. Sure, he's not on screen in the book. Fine. Again, Moiraine wasn't on screen in book 2, but you crammed her in. Rand into this one. Find a way to show the things, because we hear about it in the book. We hear about all kinds of crap that he does off screen. Mm-hmm. Show it to us. That's the good kind of adding. We talked about this. There's good adding and bad adding previously. Good adding is it's described in the books. We're just not there to see it. It's, Moiraine and Lan in the village killing all the Trollocs. It was badass, right? The bad kind of adding is the, cramming Moiraine in to plot lines that didn't exist in the book, just inventing stuff wholesale. But there's a ton of stuff in this book that Rand does that is mentioned or that happens or that is rumor or whatever. And you could show us the truth of that, right? You could show us that in this season in the show. And
Yeah.
they're just like, it didn't happen in the books. We're just we don't need to do this whole, nothing happens in this book.
They're supposed to have like a whole team of consultants too, like experts that have read the books and stuff. And that's why it gets me, man. Because even I'm thinking like, we said we wanted to talk about like the beautiful part of this book, why it's such a great book, and it the way that Robert Jordan tells the story is it's purposeful. Even the Sword in the Stone, it illustrates the broader thing that he's getting across, that time is a wheel and ages repeat themselves and legends fade to myth. And the Sword in the Stone, it's that same myth that's been repeating as time goes in kind of a circle. And it's the same with Rand's storytelling. Like it could be so cool and it could fit. They could switch the point of the show over to something that was more artistic and meaningful. But yeah, I feel like they're just going for the cheap thrills type stuff. Like make people
sorry.
Nah.
No, so this is like the hero's journey, right? This story, this story is the hero's journey. And I mean this book in particular. It's a journey. Both of the I would say all three of the first books, the first three books of this series are all the sort of beginning of a hero's journey. There's payoff within each book, and there's a sort of climax in each book, but ultimately, it's all sort of the beginning of our hero's journey. And I feel like anytime you cut like a significant amount out, you are cutting steps out of that hero's journey. You're cutting miles out of it. You cut a few scenes. Okay, I get it. You cut some of the scenes in their repetitive journey scenes in the first book. You cut them out because you have like 6 towns or 5 towns or something that Rand and Matt go to and get ambushed by dark friends over and over and over. Okay. Yeah, you reduce it to 1. Sure. Yeah. Fine. No worries. Doesn't bother me. You cut a whole friggin' book out. You're cutting out a third of the hero's journey. It's not a journey so much as it is now a trip to the end of the block where the roller coaster ride is.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Well, so what's his journey on this one? Like that's kind of where I was getting at with the themes and the repeat. Like for this one, my impression of it was Rand right now, it's fluctuating between, is Rand evil or is he good? Is the pattern going to shape itself towards terrible awfulness, or is the whole village going to get married and have a jubilee and stuff like that? And it was such a cool way to develop his character like that. Like it's just him. He's figuring stuff out. He's traveling across. There's terrible things happening around him, and then there's wonderful things.
He's coming of age.
Yep.
He's coming of age in this story. He's going from being a farm boy.
Yep.
He's going from being a farm boy who's under the sort of watchful eye of an extremely manipulative Aes Sedai, in Moiraine. He's doing that he's going from that to being his own man, right? To being his own individual, powerful, ridiculously powerful, like earth-shatteringly powerful individual. And he's doing it all kind of on his own, all out in the world. And they're just cutting it.
Oh, dude, it's meaningful reading it. Like, and there's a lot of land stuff in that too. That's why some of the land stuff irritated me so much, because their relationship was really meaningful, and the words that they had and the lessons that Lan imparted, and yeah, you're right. Like he basically said, "Screw you guys! Like I'm not going to play your games. I'm going to go out and figure this out for by myself." And it's just something real powerful in that, and it fits with the character arc so well that I have a hard time imagining. Well, I do. I know what they're going to do. They're going to just recreate it in a worse way. They're going to tell
Yeah.
It probably won't feel earned. It may surprise us. Maybe they'll have some
Yeah.
sort of thing, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and the so there's Rand's journey, which is largely, and the stuff we're talking about with Rand's journey is really largely happening off screen in this book for the most part. We get a little bit of it, bits and pieces, and we get it from other perspectives briefly. This book is mostly a journey undertaken, or a pair of journeys, maybe you could say, undertaken by um, Matt and Perrin, and then a um, sort of continuation of some of the uh, advancement and learning at the White Tower that's going on with Egwene and Nynaeve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are sort of the main plots in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Perrin's story introduces a major character, several major characters, actually, a whole group of major characters.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are Ale. So the desert people that are really important to this series, a bunch of important characters. It also introduces Fail,
Mm-hmm.
who ends up being his love interest for the rest of the series.
Gaul.
Gaul is one of the Ale that gets introduced. He's really cool character, sticks around a long time. Awesome character. It introduces for Matt, it reintroduces Tom Maryland, who was in the first season, first book, and really not in the second one, but it reintroduces him as a major character. He's fantastic. Again, long-term character in the series. It reintroduces it is Julian or Julian. I don't know how to say it. Julian.
Yeah, Julian.
Sandar, who's a cool character that sticks around with Matt basically for the whole series.
Yeah.
It introduces all these really cool characters. There are some amazing scenes that are going to be missing, like in Matt's story. It's going to be missing, I mean, maybe they'll be able to cram it in somewhere, but there's a scene where he defeats both Galad Damodred and Gawain Tricond. Or is that how you say that? Tricond?
I always said Trekond.
I never knew how to say that one. That was it was the family name of one of the royal families, but basically he defeats these two like princes.
Yeah, the Andorran princes.
Yeah, the Andorran princes.
Andaran, I think. Andorran.
Yeah,
Andor.
And who are both training to be warders.
Oh man, such a cool scene.
It's such a cool scene, and he beats them in the training yard.
Did you see in the previews they had Galad in there, and he had his shirt off, and he was like, "Ugh."
Yeah, it's possible they give us that scene, in another way. It is just one scene, but I think the thing that's important to me is that they're skipping all of this development and all of this coming of age and all of these characters kind of striking out on their own and all of the travels and like experiences they have, and they're cutting it all because it's not exciting enough. It's what gives weight and gravity to all the events that come afterwards.
Dude. Yep.
And it's not that there isn't anything interesting or fun or exciting or flashy. It's that it's not enough for an Amazon show, apparently.
It totally is, though.
It totally is.
You could have.
If you didn't want to make this, you shouldn't have made the show.
Yeah. Here, man. Dude, even
it gives it all like weight and momentum, and when you get to the cool shit, the really epic shit, you've been through all of this with the characters, and it gives it meaning. If you just skip all of the development and all of that shit, and you just skip straight to the Dumai's wells, it lacks meaning. It lacks weight and emphasis and import. It just lacks gravity. And maybe it'll be okay without this book. But if you skip too much of the stuff that's in this book, that will happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking even Elaine, Nynaeve, and Egwene,
Mm-hmm.
they get a lot of chapters in this, and
They do.
basically their whole thing is they're pretending to be Aes Sedai. Now they were betrayed by the Blackishaw. Egwene was
Mm-hmm.
imprisoned. They escaped, and then they had to hightail it to Tyr. Um, and so there's so many cool scenes though where you know, they're kind of having the same stuff Rand is, and these are some of the deeper themes of the series that aren't really getting fleshed out in the show because the show has to be sexy. But it's a lot. It's about power. It's about um, kind of stymied, overbearing power systems, and or rotten power systems. And so another way they explore that theme is by that trio of women kind of coming to their own. They have their own hero's journey, and they're pretending to be Aes Sedai. And Nynaeve is out there kicking ass, taking names. There's a lot of character development with the three of them. They're kind of discovering their niches. They're laying all the groundwork for who they're going to be, what they're going to do in the future. And that's another one where, yeah, like you said, they earned it with this book. This this book just sets up everything. And yeah, it's just stunning to me that they would not see that. And I don't know, yeah, like I said, maybe they'll do a flashback sequence or something, but they're probably just going to try to recreate it in a more shitty way. Um, and I could see them kind of trying to just shove it into the Aiel experience. Maybe they just equated them as the same. They're like, well, the Aiel is like a big proving ground for them, so they'll just find themselves up there and find their spines and become the wise women who go back
Mm-hmm.
and change the Aes Sedai from within. Yeah, it's just there's the and that's just that. I mean, there's political intrigue that's great. There's a lot of cool political stuff. You learn more about Dark Friends in Tyr.
Mm-hmm.
Get to explore a whole culture with the Tiarans, and there's some really enjoyable things. So many great scenes. Um, and yeah, the water scene's one of my favorites. When I think of the Wheel of Time, the scene with the quarterstaff always sticks out.
Yeah.
It's not just that it's like a cool fight and it's a character doing a badass thing. In Jordan-esque in a Jordan-esque way, there's so much meaning put into it because basically it's a sickly farm boy with a quarterstaff, and he just beats the living shit out of these two trained swordsmen who've been playing with swords since they were kids.
Yeah.
And it's the leader of the warders comes out and he says, "Let this be a lesson to you." And that even that has payoff long term in the series.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
yeah, and there's just so much, man.
Yeah. There are a lot of scenes in this book that when I think about Wheel of Time,
Mm.
uh, they come to me before a lot of scenes that
Yeah.
happen later that were big action, exciting scenes. They're not necessarily exciting scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Rand leaving Moiraine and Lan. That
Yeah.
scene, that scene hits for me.
Ugh.
Uh, some of the scenes about that with Egwene and Nynaeve and the Black Aja hit for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the scene, like you've said, and I'll just repeat it. That's the scene with, we've already talked about it. The scene with Matt and the quarterstaff defeating, Gallon and Gawain.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of like the all time scenes for me in this series. Uh, and we barely even talked about like the whole sequence in Tyr,
Yeah. So
which
much happens. Yeah.
so much happens, and it's such a huge action, like big set piece action sequence with like the ale invading the stone and the fight scene between Rand and Bilal and Balsamon and like and the
Yeah.
Kalendor in the scene where he claims Kalendor and like and all of these sequences. And then there's a whole bunch of scenes like in like Matt and Tom when Matt finds Tom again and like and when Perrin finds Fail and
Mm.
rescues Gaul and like there's so many scenes in this that are that are memorable scenes, and they're not all action sequences or battle scenes, right? A lot of them are emotional scenes or starting points for journeys that are going to continue throughout the whole series. I mean, assuming if they even get there with the shows and the way things get canceled,
Yeah.
or I there's so much that begins in this book that I just cannot fathom straight skipping it.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to
Yeah.
me as a fan of this series, as somebody who read this book along with the rest of it when I was a kid. Like, if I had to skip a book, I'm sorry, I would. If somebody like put a gun to my head and said you got to skip one of the first three books, I would skip The Great Hunt. And I wouldn't skip it, but if I had to, if somebody was like, you die or you skip a book, or which book do you skip, I would skip The Great Hunt. I mean, frankly, over this one.
Yeah. Oh, even that one. I love it. It's one of my precious ones, but I think I'm with you. I'd have to axe that one.
It just if I had to skip one, I can't skip the first one. Duh. So I'm essentially, if I have to skip The Dragon Reborn or The Great Hunt, I'm sorry I skipped The Great Hunt.
Yeah.
It's less important to the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
It's still important to the whole series, but this book, The Dragon Reborn, is where a lot of characters are introduced that are going to be critical, important characters, and how they get introduced, how they get met, and all of those scenes are going to matter. And if you just skip them, if you just say, well, now there's this guy, where'd Fail come from? Oh,
yeah. They're just going to introduce her in a different, more shitty way, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're just going to do it in a different, more shitty way. There was this promise after season 1 that was made where they were basically going to be like, where people were so mad at the end there. And then the second season was like shaping up to be the same kind of way. And he said something basically where he made this promise where he was like, by the end of season 3, we're going to be like totally back with the books, like where we need to be. You can't do that if you're skipping books. How can you do that? You're just gonna like pretend you didn't make all these choices you made and just magically just show up, and it does none of this. It's just, it smacks to me of like skipping this book basically smacks to me of they have certain like requirements about the amount of action.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Shadow Rising is like a really action heavy book. And it just makes me wonder if they're not going to be like, well, we need to skip book like 6 or whatever. Like,
right.
Or it's not 6. Is it, what is it? 7? There's a book in there that's like maybe not the most action heavy, the sort of like, and people talk about, I think it's book 7. There's people talk about there being a lull in the series, and I don't agree with that. I think, but people talk about it like there is, and I can kind of see their point sometimes, but I disagree. I don't think there's a single book in the series where I'm like, yeah, that's fine to skip. Not really. But it just makes me wonder, like, how many books are they gonna skip? This is how many books did it end up at? Like
12, I think.
12, 13, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact number.
Yeah, how many?
Look at the shelf in the other room. Yeah. I have them all up there on
all your tomes. And and by the way, we're not talking about a small book if you haven't read them. These are all meaty tomes.
Mm-hmm.
They're famously gigantic. It's hard to find like an idiom to do. It'd be like skipping. Oh, I mean, it's a major thing. It's a major thing to skip. I can't even think. I don't know, like Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. Like I'm holding the Dragon Reborn. It's original.
Is it paperback or hardback?
It's paperback. It's paperback, man. But this is the first mass market printing, October 1992.
Dude, we're talking like 4-inch thick paperbacks.
Yeah, this is from 1990. This is the first paperback printing that I'm holding right here.
Can you turn that to the side real quick? It's like, oh yeah, look at that big, gigantic.
It's 674 pages, like old school paperback fantasy novel.
Yeah.
Like this book is a thick book full of really important shit for this series. It's like you think of like the first three books as being the foundation for the rest of the series to rest on. You
Yeah.
can't take away a third of the foundation and expect it to hold up.
Yeah. Even I was thinking about it because that last scene, there's a scene where Rand has Kalendor.
Mm-hmm.
There are shadow spawn in the tier, in the Stone
Yep.
of Tier. And I remember for me, this was the first point in the books where like a really big thing with the one power happened. Um, and in the show, they blew their wad, first couple episodes. I guess, they had to show like, oh, look at this cool big shit that happens with the one power.
Yeah.
But in the books, there was so much buildup. It was a delicious buildup. And you read about the power, you read about the Age of Legends and all the cool shit you can do with the power. And you kind of see little things every now and then. And then you see what a fucking Sai and Griel can do. And it's just so like it's another one of those meaningful scenes that stick out to me. It was just Rand holding the sword up, and they kind of show
It's
it on the cover there. It's a really
it's
cool
totally
cover.
on the cover.
Yeah. I mean, it's a glowing sword of power and lightning. He creates this spell, and not only is it cool, not only is it epic, but he doesn't do it on his own. There's something inside of him that's doing it. And it kind of introduced, you've been slowly being introduced to the character of Lews Therin,
Mm-hmm.
who is supposedly just a manifestation of madness, but is he?
But is he?
And it's awesome.
And that's honestly that's the first place where we really get that he might not be just the madness.
Right. Because there's a real manifestation of his.
Yeah, of his power.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yep.
the cover for this book is friggin' awesome.
Oh, so good.
Like the spine of the book has
Yeah.
it has
The
Balal
Balzaman.
is
Yeah, Balal,
Balzaman
yeah,
or
with the mask.
Balal with the mask. And it's got like the ale like hiding behind pillars on the back. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, wow, man, it's such a cool cover. The original, you got to look up, if you haven't seen him, go look up the original Dragon Reborn covers. It's
Yeah.
friggin' hot. It's such a
Yeah.
good cover. I love all these covers so much. I saw, there's this kind of cool, like, dust jacket set you can buy for the hardbacks. It's like a third party, like, it's like an official third party dust jacket set. It looks really good. And a part of me is like, that's really cool. It's like super expensive. But a part of me is like, that's really cool if I had like, the extra money or whatever to get something like that. And then I'm like, yeah, but why would I want to cover up those badass like original dust jackets? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they look so good. Why would I want to cover them up with anything else?
It's a good allegory for the series.
Right.
The book is so good. Why would you want to cover it up? Why would you want to create
Yeah.
a new thing? And I think you're right. That instinct that there's like something else going on. There's something else with the production of it or the money holders, the purse holders. And it's not like it's a pattern we haven't seen. I mean, God, there's Section 31 is the newest Star Trek movie that just came out on Paramount. It's like completely not Star Trek. It was written by a group of people that wanted to make Star Trek something that it wasn't. They turned it into this kind of overwrought, overdramatic, stressful, badly done thing. And I think there's a lot of producers up their own ass right now with what they think people want and what makes money. And they're not taking risks. They're not they're going based on algorithms and stuff. And this, yes, that's my ultimate worry with this show is that it will drive people away from the books because it's just another like book series, just another overly dramatic thing, Yeah.
I feel like everything needs to be like for it to get produced these days. Everything needs to be spectacle. Everything has to be the biggest spectacle you've ever seen.
Yeah.
I feel like this started with Marvel. Everything had to be huge. Everything had to be enormous. Everything had to be bigger than the last thing.
I'm okay blaming Marvel for that. Yeah.
And I don't know if it is
maybe
Marvel
Disney.
or I don't know if it's Marvel or Star Wars or if it's the Disney sort of buying these things up and like trying to like make these. I don't know where it started.
Maybe Game of
I don't
Thrones.
know. I don't think it's Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones, at least in those first seasons when it was like really building, those first few seasons were great and they had amazing character development. They took things kind of slow sometimes. They slow, there'd be a big event, they'd slow things down and they'd pace it right. And then
Yep.
they'd build things back up. And I know the last couple of seasons of that show were just horrible because the guys were just making shit up, right? They
Yeah,
weren't
something
waiting for
happened
those
around
moments.
that time though. I mean, even that was when Marvel
Yeah.
really started taking off too. And it's just maybe it's a
Yeah.
pressure to perform, maybe it's streaming.
Not everything, maybe it's streaming. I don't know, but not everything needs to be spectacle like that, or at least
Oh
not the
man.
biggest spectacle. It's okay. It has to be okay because the best stories aren't all spectacle. The best stories are some combination of character development, plot development, this telling compelling, interesting stories. And then, yes, it might have a climax in the last couple episodes, but that's what makes those last couple episodes so friggin' good. It's not that you need every episode to be just to take Game of Thrones again. Not every episode needs to be the Battle of the Bastards. Not everything needs to be the Blackwater. Not everything needs to be those things. Those are the climax episodes in a show full of plot and story and character development and dialogue and like smaller, more low key things that are just, it's okay if it's not 8 episodes of absolute spectacle and
Yeah.
special effects. Just chill the fuck out. Make
Oh
a
dude.
show that's good, that's based on the books. Don't worry about making the fucking terrible as hell. Like, what's the Lord of the Rings show that's on one of the Rings of Power or whatever? That's a horrible show. Don't make it like that. Make Wheel of
Dude.
Time.
Yeah. It would be different too. I think it would stick out. And dude, I think about this a lot because so I'm a big Star Trek fan. I'm a big sci-fi head. And
Mhm.
Star Trek has been hit by a similar bug where they're missing the point of Star Trek. Now, back in the day, when I would sit down and watch a next gen episode, well, one, it's like a weekly thing. So they had so many episodes, but you'd have a political episode one week. You'd have
Yeah.
another one where they explored power dynamics. You'd have another one where there was some weird virus or some shit. And then you'd have one that was like a battle. It was exciting. It was stuff. But the pacing of it was so much slower. And I don't know about you, man, but I got a 6-year-old. I'm 40. The world's a little stressful right now. And when it's Friday night and I've had a long week and my kid's been like, going crazy and I just get into bed, the last thing I want to do is sit down and watch a show that's going to stress me out. And so when I sit down for Star Trek, uh, Discovery was really bad about this. You'd sit down and it was just an hour of just over the top drama. And I'm like,
Mhm.
man, I deal with this all the time, every day. Why would I want to sit down? This isn't entertaining. It just feels like stressful work to me. And that's how the Wheel of Time show feels. Because yeah, it's you never just sit into the plot. You never get those quiet moments to reflect and to make meaning out of anything. It's just like constant dopamine. And yeah, by 10
Mhm.
minutes into a Wheel of Time episode, I'm just done. I'm like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really wish producers and showrunners would switch things up. And there are some doing that. There's some good shows out there right now.
There are some good shows. They're just, not the big fantasy shows, honestly.
Mhm.
I feel like everybody on the whole planet, basically, if you were to say what are the best shows of the last decade or what are the best shows of the like who makes the best shows? Somebody might say, well, HBO makes the best shows. You'd be like, okay, what are the best HBO shows? Somebody might say something like The Wire or Sopranos. Was every fucking episode in The Sopranos like a mob shootout?
No, yeah, exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about. Like, there's
yeah,
development, there's character development, there's dialogue, there's slow burn plot development. And then near the end of a season or at the end of a season, there's a big dramatic event. Maybe there's a couple sprinkled in throughout the season, but you don't just blow your wad every episode all the time. Like, just
yeah.
slow down. And this
Yeah, you
book
need some
is,
foreplay first, man. You
yes,
can't just jump
that's
right
what
to that.
this book is. That's what the Dragon Reborn is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's slowing it down. It's eating your veggies or whatever so you can have dessert. If everything that
Yep.
you eat is dessert, it loses its kind of impact at some
Yeah,
point.
it's well said, man. It's a good. That'd be my good like little moniker for the show. It's like saccharine dessert filled uh smorgasbord. Maybe. But yeah, I don't want that. I don't want. Yeah, when I sit down for dinner, I want my meat and potatoes
Mhm.
and then a nice dessert.
Yeah,
Um,
I like a little bit of roasted, like, I don't know, roasted veggies on the side. Like, you get them like kind
sure.
of crispy. You throw them in the broiler or you throw them in the 425-degree oven. You get a little roasted, like crispy Brussels sprouts. Hell
Oh
yeah.
man, I'll
And
stop.
then
I'm
it
hungry.
makes, and then it makes the dessert, the fucking, I don't know, creme brulee that you made or the fucking whatever, I don't know, fucking ice cream or whatever. It makes it even better.
Yeah,
Why would you?
is that so hard? That's the funny part about this. I feel like those are the lessons I try to give my kid.
Yeah.
And then it's one of the things of life, like when you have a kid and you see other adults not behaving like your kids behave better than the adults do or think about things
Mm-hmm.
more. It makes you more pissed. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, having these people in charge of this book, it feels like you have like a beloved muscle car or something that was like your family heirloom for decades, and then you gave it to this guy who said he was going to take care of it. And then the next time you see it, he's like cut a hole in the roof for a moonroof that it doesn't need. And there's flames and shit. No, no. What have you done
Oh,
to my
yeah.
baby?
Oh, good.
So I hope Springs Eternal, man. I maybe they'll surprise us and try to rewrite everything to make sense. I'm skeptical, though. I'm skeptical.
I'm skeptical, and here I think they're going to be leaning really fucking heavily on the books.
Hmm.
They're going to be leaning really heavily on the books so that they can skip it. And then most people will be like, oh, well, I know what happened between seasons 2 and 3 because I've read the books. They're going to be leaning really heavily on the books to do a lot of the work so that they don't have to explain everything. That's how I feel it's
Mm-hmm.
going to end up happening. And then a lot
Oh,
of people are going to be people who maybe haven't read the books are going to be like, what? Because they're going to be confused because they don't know what happened. Or people who have not read the books in ages are going to be like, I don't remember that. Like, I
yeah.
just feel like they're going to be leaning really heavily on the fact that the books exist. Uh, and maybe they fucking shouldn't, right? Maybe they should tell the fucking story that Robert Jordan told.
It's a hot take. Yeah, maybe just do
Just
the story. Yep.
if you didn't want to tell the story that Robert Jordan told, maybe you shouldn't have signed up for making the fucking story that Robert Jordan told.
Oh man, this is so nuts. Yeah, this. Yeah, I'm so conflicted, man. Thinking about doing another reread just because. Yeah, those scenes, man. This is still one of the only books, man. It's like reading poetry. It's art. Um, it's just such a cool book.
Yeah. It's a
And
phenomenal book. And
mhm.
nobody should skip it when they read the series. It's
No,
amazing.
yeah, just for the imagery alone. I mean, that's one of Robert. Something that's weird too. Like when I think of like showrunners, like, all right, we have this book from this author, we're trying to capture it. It just seems like 101, man. Like if you're going to write something that someone did, like, should it not reflect their vision at some level? And Robert
Yeah.
Jordan's vision was like he was a master of like creating this tapestry of it was beautiful, and there was a lot of just it's one of the most beautifully written passages I've seen where he like brings stuff alive in a way that not a whole lot of authors can do. And I see glimmers of that in the show. But it's like it's fighting with itself. It's fighting with that like sexy action half. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
another half that honestly I feel like is just wasting time sometimes. Like sometimes they'll have like a 15-20 second shot of the countryside. Okay, I get it. You guys are filming
We
in a
got to
cool
set the
location.
scene. They got to set the
Yeah,
scene.
whatever.
And
Yeah.
I don't mind that. I don't begrudge them that. I mean, Robert Jordan described the countryside beautifully.
Hmm.
He made the world feel big and real, and he
Yeah.
described he always set the scene. So I get that they want to do that.
And the
I'm actually a
costumes
fan of
too are
that.
pretty well done. And
Yeah,
I'm not
the
saying it
costumes are pretty
necessarily in a
nice.
negative way, but it's just every time I see something that I like, like with the costumes, look maybe that are paying an homage to Jordan, I see just a complete throwing away of the other half of it, the storytelling aspect and the pacing and the character development.
The pacing. The pacing is
Oh,
is the thing that I feel like they've thrown away the most.
yeah, it's rough.
And yeah, like, and I
It's really
understand you
rough.
can't pace things identically. It's a TV show, not a book.
Mm.
But they're doing a piss poor job of it
Oh man. Well, maybe this is it, Gus. Maybe this is the season they turn it all around. It
by
will be proven
skipping a
wrong
book.
by skipping a book. Yeah, I hope they prove us wrong.
Yeah.
Hope,
Oh,
hope.
yeah. Good Lord. I hope that season 3 uh
We'll do a show about it, man. Yeah.
is phenomenal. We will do a show about it,
Yeah.
good or bad. We might do a couple shows about it depending on how things go. I don't know.
Yep.
We will have to actually read the book here, read Shadow Rising at some point,
Mm.
because that is the book that they're doing for season 3. It's what I say doing is if they haven't already made the thing.
Yeah.
It's the book they've done.
Yep.
So
Better for worse. It's out
yeah.
there.
So the show is coming out soonish, I think, right? The trailer
Yeah.
hit. You can go watch the trailer for it if you want to know what we're talking about. So there you go.
You feel better, Gus?
No.
I don't either. I'm just pissed now.
Yeah, because nothing's changed. They still skipped book fucking 3 of the series, and it still pisses me
Yeah.
off. So I'm just like kind of horrified by that decision.
Yeah, me too, man. And I guess the one helping if you're listening to this and you feel the same way we do, we're in the same boat. Misery loves company, I suppose.
Yeah.
But if you haven't read the book, I hope you have. Hope you feel excited about reading it. And if you are feeling weird about the series, I hope this is a good defense
Yeah.
against the books.
They can make all the shitty adaptations of it they want.
Yeah,
They cannot unpublish this amazing book.
yeah,
And it is fantastic. And I highly recommend the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. I highly recommend the Dragon Reborn book 3. And, you know,
it's so good. Don't listen to the haters.
so
There's a lot
good.
of haters out there. There's a lot of people that nitpick and get me. Don't listen to them.
Yeah, go read it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
And it's part of it's sort of it feels like the stepping off point for a really amazing journey that goes for another like 10 books and is really phenomenal and worth your time and worthwhile. Fantasy fan or not,
Mhm.
it's worth your time. It's worthwhile. It's really fantastic.
Yeah. Well said.
They can't unpublish it. Yeah.
See, there we go.
That might be the title of the episode.
I like that. That's
Can't
good. That's a
unpublish it.
positive note at the end there.
Yeah.
They can't take it away from us. All right. Well, man, I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling like we got not good, but
Yeah.
feeling like we got it all out there.
Mm-hmm. I feel like
And,
we got it all out there for
and
sure.
March 13th is the date, so we'll have
March 13th. Okay.
a little under a month to gird our loins against whatever is going to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this time next year, maybe we'll have a watch party for season 4 if it doesn't completely suck. So
Shoot, let's have a watch party if it does suck. They just want to complain about it. And then our wives can hang out while we bitch about it.
Yeah.
Like they're really
Sounds good.
passionate about this book.
Yeah, we can drink some Kilchoman and complain about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds fun, man.
Just call this podcast Two Old Men Complaining About Shit That Doesn't Matter. Oh, good. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the Bitch Fest and the episode. And I hope we will see you on the next one. Have a good night.
And stay gold.